If you play video games, you've likely heard of Genshin Impact. This open-world role-playing game made by Chinese developer miHoYo burst onto the scene in 2020, quickly gaining popularity and players. If you're not a gamer and are still curious, here's the deal. You play as the Traveler, a mysterious young swordfighter on a quest to find their kidnapped sibling. On a long meandering journey across the world of Teyvat, the Traveler encounters gods, monsters, heroes, and villains, many of whom the player can befriend and add to their party. Genshin Impact's immense popularity is due, in part, to all the cultural details crammed into the game. Though Teyvat is emphatically a fantasy world, miHoYo liberally sampled from real-world traditions to build each of its regions. In the China-inspired nation of Liyue, the Traveler gets a crash course in Liyuan, read Chinese opera, while in Sumeru, they can learn how to cook foods such as panipuri and samosas. The landscapes and architecture of Genshin Impact often have specific real-world counterparts as well. In behind-the-scenes videos, game designers have explained how Zhangjiajie, in Hunan Province, provided the blueprint for Jueyun Karst, and Switzerland's Matterhorn inspired Mondstadt's Dragonspine. Other times, the design team spliced together many elements to create something entirely new. For example, the look of Wangshu Inn in Liyue was inspired by the real-life Hanging Temple of Hengshan, Fenghuang Ancient Town in Hunan Province, as well as the fictional Dragon Inn from the film of the same name. 1. Huanglong Travertine Pools. For 2.2 miles in the Huanglong Valley, naturally formed terraced hot spring pools gently flow between rugged mountains and forests. Filled with awe-inspiring creatures known only to China, it has been dubbed Fairyland on Earth. Genshin Impact has confirmed that Luhua Pool's vivid were inspired by Sichuan Province's Huanglong Travertine Pools. 2. Socotra Island, Yemen. The island of Socotra is part of an archipelago in the Indian Ocean. It is so isolated that a third of its plant life is found nowhere else on the planet. Notable are the dragon's blood trees that look like flying saucers perched on trunks. Adenium socotranum are trees that look like elephants' legs with pink flowers on top. Birds such as the Socotra starling, Socotra sunbird, and Socotra grosbeak are found nowhere else on Earth. Bats are the island's only native mammal. 3. Morinjai Temple to Tebayashi, Japan. This temple is steeped in local folklore involving a tea kettle and a raccoon dog. Morinjai Temple in Tebayashi is famously associated with Bunbyaku Chagama, a Japanese folktale that is well known across the country. Many versions exist, but what all of them have in common is a tea kettle and a raccoon dog, or tanuki as it is called in Japanese. In the popular version of the myth, the high priest of Morinjai Temple buys a tea kettle, Chagama, which sprouts paws and a tail, along with a badger-like head. When it's put on the fire, bewildered, the high priest sells the tea kettle off to a junk shop, whose kind-hearted owner welcomes and befriends the shape-shifting animal. Touring across Japan, the raccoon dog makes a fortune dancing and performing tightrope walking. The junk dealer returns the tea kettle to the temple, which accepts it as its treasure. 4. Mont Saint-Michel, France. This 1,300-year-old monastery built atop a single rock was once only accessible depending on the whims of the tide. Set atop a solid rock in the middle of a bay, the abbey and surrounding town was originally only accessible as the tides allowed. Although subsequent development has allowed 24 hours access to the island, an in-progress dam will restore the rock to its previous state as entirely surrounded by water during high tide. Regardless of whether there exists a 24-hour bridge to the rock or not, Mont Saint-Michel remains a singularly beautiful structure atop an amazing geological formation. During the day, take a tour of the abbey and that tiny, surrounding town. Even better, stay overnight in one of the hotels, and you'll have the run of the grounds, as the island empties to only a handful of residents after dark. The abbey was originally built to the schematics of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, after both an abbot and a count had had visions of Saint Michael. Historians suggest, though, that this was merely a scheme to increase tourism into the area. 5. Avatar Hallelujah Mountain, Zhangjiajie, China. This vertical pinnacle in China was the inspiration for the floating mountains in the movie Avatar. It wasn't until 1982 that China created its first national park, Zhangjiajie National Forest Park. They couldn't have chosen a better site. Zhangjiajie is famous for its 3,000 vertical pillars, each standing hundreds of feet tall and covered in dense green foliage. These pillars were formed by erosion and draw in upwards of 30 million tourists every year. 6. The Queering Isle of Skye, Scotland. Islanders once used this dramatic, otherworldly landscape to hide their cattle from Viking raiders. This is the kind of place that leaves you breathless, and not just because you have to trek uphill. The craggy landscape looks like something from a magical realm. Its ridges roll toward the sky like great green waves, and little lakes nestled at their feet darken and seem to dance beneath the passing clouds. Though it looks like a serene scene straight from a dream, the Quirang was formed by terrestrial turmoil. It's one of Britain's largest landslips and was created due to strain within its underlying layers of rock. 7. Relampago del Catatumbo, Venezuela. This everlasting lightning storm may be the world's largest generator of ozone. There's something strange in the air where the Catatumbo River flows into Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela. For 140 to 160 nights out of the year, for 10 hours at a time, the sky above the river is pierced by almost constant lightning, producing as many as 280 strikes per hour. Known as the Relampago del Catatumbo, relampago means lightning in Spanish. This lightning storm has been raging on and off for as long as people can remember. The area has been labeled as the most electric place on Earth, and it even made it to the Guinness Book of World Records. 8. Tomb of Hafiz Shiraz, Iran. A dreamy mausoleum honors Persia's most famous poet. The Tomb of Hafiz is in a peaceful, garden setting that drips with an ambience of poetry and romance. The 14th century writer is considered the Shakespeare of Iran, one of the greatest Persian poets of all time, and a source of national pride. 9. Hanging Temple of Hengshan, Datong, China. A 5th century temple improbably built into the side of a cliff. The Hanging Temple, located about 60 kilometers southeast of Datong, China, in the Shaanxi province, is one of the world's forgotten wonders. Clinging to a crag of Hengshan Mountain in apparent defiance of gravity, it consists of 40 rooms linked by a dizzying maze of passageways. The temple is said to have been built by a monk named Liyue during the late Northern Wei dynasty, 386 to 534, and restored in 1900. It was constructed by drilling holes into the cliffside into which the poles that hold up the temples are set. 10. Honghani Rice Terraces, Hong, China. A complex and beautiful system of rice terraces covers 1 million acres over the mountains. The stunning Honghani Rice Terraces cover 1 million acres from the slopes of the Ailao Mountains down to the Hong Kong River in Yunnan, China. The 1,200-year-old elaborate red rice terraces were created to bring water down from the forests to allow for farming on the slopes. The system of terraces stretches over 4 counties: Yuanyang, Hong, Jinping, and Ilshan, although the main area is in Yuanyang. 11. Fushimi Inari Taisha Shrine, Kyoto, Japan. The 10,000 torii shrine, originally established in 711 CE by Korean lords of the area, Fushimi Inari Shrine is the most famous of several thousand shrines dedicated to Inari, the Shinto god of rice. Foxes are thought to be the messengers of Inari, and as such many fox statues can be found at Inari shrines. The foxes are sometimes seen holding keys in their mouths, the key to the rice granaries. Japanese merchants, in particular, worship Inari to bring them wealth, and leave numerous offerings at the shrines, particularly fried tofu called aburage, which is believed to be Inari's favorite food. 12. Cat Island, Ishinomaki, Japan. On Japan's Tashirajima Island, cats are king. On the island of Tashirajima in the Miyagi Prefecture, the cats outnumber people, and the people like it that way. It's no accident that the cats who inhabit Tashirajima, or what has become known as Cat Island in Japan, have come to be the island's primary residents. Cats have long been thought by the locals to represent luck and good fortune, and doubly so if you feed and care for them. Thus, the cats are treated like kings, and although most are feral because keeping them as pets is generally considered inappropriate, they are well fed and well cared for. Despite this, luck and fortune haven't exactly come to the human residents of Cat Island. In the last 50 years, the human population of the island has dwindled from 1,000 to fewer than 100. As more and more people have shunned the island as it became dominated by felines, the people that have remained have become ever more protective of the cats. Know before you go. It can be difficult to find cat food on the island, so if you opt to bring some treats, drop by a convenience store before taking the ferry. This is not the only cat island in Japan. Another popular spot is Ashima Island in Ehime Prefecture, with about 150 cats and about a dozen human residents. Luckily for fans of Genshin Impact, many of its most beautiful landscapes take their inspiration from the fascinating places collected in this video. So take a page out of the traveler's book and set out on an adventure to see the world.